Hi everyone, Samantha here after quite a, I guess, fairly sizable absence. I don't remember when my last video was. I think it was over a month ago, and I apologize for that. I know it's not really the done thing on YouTube, but I got a bit of a sore throat, and so I didn't want to croak at you through a video. And really, I just didn't have much to talk about. I, well, sorry, there's my dog. Hi, Ellie. Hi. Am I in your way? I'm sorry. I have to make room for her on the couch. I apologize. She's 11, and she likes things done her way. Come on, up. Okay, there she is. Ellie, look. No, see? She wants things done her way. That's her. Yeah, please show everyone your butt. Go on. Lie down. Lie down, sweetie. And there she is. She's part of this video now. Anyway. So yeah, I thought I would make a quick video just sort of doing a list of goals for 2018. I can't believe it's almost 2018, by the way. That's ridiculous to me. But anyway, actually first... Sorry, Ellie's very distracting. First, I guess a little reading update. In one of my last videos, I talked about reading not saying it, but reading Middlemarch, and how difficult I was finding it. And since that video, I did manage to read a little bit more. Not too much more, but a little bit more. And actually, at parts, I enjoyed it. I found myself reading it quite quickly and not having to backtrack or think about people and who's who. But then it just kind of petered out. I found I wasn't excited to read. I didn't read it for days. And I'm not a terribly prolific reader or fast reader, but I don't often go weeks without reading something, and I found I was doing that with Middlemarch, so I didn't like that. And I gave up. I'm sorry. I tried all the advice I was given. It was very good advice. I just can't do it. And since it's December, the 13th now when I'm recording this, I didn't want to bring that with me into the new year. I thought I would just leave it and come back to it another time. We'll see. We'll see how well that works. Maybe it's just not for me. I know that's also a possibility, and that's cool. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But I wanted to share a little bit about the book I am reading now, and I'm really enjoying it. It's, sorry, this is a little ripped. It's A Midnight Oil by V.S. Pritchett. I've never actually read anything by V.S. Pritchett. He, I believe, was a short story writer, and this is the second volume of his memoirs, and I've read the first one, both of which were my mother's. This is my mom's copy, too. She always had these books on her shelf, and this one in particular I always remember noticing just because of the cover. Like, look at that cover. That's quite lovely. And the title, when I was a kid, I didn't know what midnight oil meant, so it just always stuck with me. And I don't remember, a year or so ago, maybe a little longer, I borrowed the first volume of the memoir from my mom, and I didn't know what to expect. As I said, I didn't read anything of his ever, so I had no idea who he even was. And I was really into it. He was born in 1900, so technically in the Victorian period. And yeah, I just remember there was a part where, and he lived in London, there was a part where he talked about just the complete air pollution and the smog and how it was to live amongst that in London. It was just fascinating, not only as someone who's never had to live through that, but just the way it was written was very compelling and very clear. And it just always stuck with me. So I was happy to break my reading drudgery, I guess, with this one. And I've only just begun. I'm on page 49. But so far I'm quite liking it. This book takes place, well, it starts when he's, I believe, 20, and he moves to Paris. Normally, see guys, I have this thing about Paris. I've never been there. Okay, I guess the idea of Paris is more correct. I think it's okay. But I also think it's a bit cliche that everyone has to go to Paris and find themselves. So we'll see. I mean, this is a real guy. It isn't fiction, and I find it could be a bit cheesy in fiction. I know that's not always the case, but we'll see. I mean, maybe it'll be fine. So far, I mean, I really enjoy the writing. He's got a great, easy style, and he's humorous without being slapstick about it. Yeah, so I'm enjoying it, and again, I'm sorry about Middlemarch. I gave it my all. Wasn't good enough. I'll try again. But yeah, so I don't have real reading goals for 2018. I don't really do that kind of thing very well. I'm totally one of those people, or unless you're paying me, if you give me a challenge, I'll say, I'll do it when I want to do it. Yeah, so I'm not going to give myself any reading goals, but I will share a few books that I'm looking forward to reading this winter in general. I find winter is often a time when I read certain style of books. I notice I tend to read my Victorian novels more in the winter than I do in the summer. I don't know why, maybe just something about the weather. You're more inclined to stay in and be cozy, and maybe that's better for this style of book that a Victorian is, at least for a modern reader. It activates your mind grapes a little bit, so yeah, I just find a long afternoon in like January is a good time for that. So on that note, I think I'm going to start with the Pickwick Papers, which I've never read, and it's nice and big, so I'm looking forward to that. Jesus. It's nearly 800 pages. All right. Well, I mean, they're small pages, but still. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Don't know if you've heard this before, but Dickens is a pretty good author. So yeah, it'll be good, I think. I picked this one up actually at a Christmas sale. There was a Christmas market in the local church, and I don't know why they had used books for sale, because that's not typically, I think, what they do in Christmas markets, but whatever. I'm not going to turn my nose up at it. It cost, I think, 25 or 50 cents, so yeah, good deal. Good deal. And another book I like to read in the winter, well, it's not a book, I know, this is one huge book, but the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I have read this before. Read it for the first time when I was about 13, and I think that's when I kind of fell in love with it, even though when you're 13, a lot of it sort of goes over your head. It's a bit ponderous to get through when you're that age, but I remember reading it on a road trip, and I had nothing else to do, so I got into it, and I enjoyed it, and I've read it maybe 3 or 4 times since then, but I haven't read it in a couple of years. The only thing actually maybe that's been holding me back is this giant book. My husband and I originally had each book separated, but then we decided this would be a good investment, and maybe it is, but it's definitely not a coffee shop book, I think, or a bus book. Sorry, I just opened it to a random page, and let me hoist this for you. Look, illustrations. And I don't like that sound of the spine cracking. I know it's supposed to, but I feel like I'm hurting it. I'm sorry. So I'm really looking forward to that. Definitely one of my favorite series, books, universes. So yeah, really looking forward to that one. And another one I'd like to read this winter is The Waterfall by Margaret Drabble. Now, Margaret Drabble is probably one of my all-time favorite writers. I just love her, both like as a person and a writer, and the things she writes. She's a huge inspiration for me. I think I mentioned this in another video, actually. Yeah, in my IFOA video, I think I mentioned my love of Margaret Drabble, but this book in particular, I haven't read yet, ironically enough, because it's a first edition that my husband got me for Christmas a few years ago. Not only is it a first edition, but it's a signed first edition. Like, here I am throwing my first edition around. I'm sorry. Anyway, my husband went on eBay for this, which he never does. I don't think he must have been on eBay once or twice in his youth, but yeah, anyway, I think that was really sweet of him. And I've just been, I don't want to, I mean, you just saw how I reacted about cracking the spine on that Lord of the Rings book, but like, that's a first edition. I don't want to screw it up, so I have to be very careful with that. But yeah, so those are the 3 books I'm planning to read this winter, at least. Of course, I'd like to read more if I can, but Those are my main ones. Writing-wise, I suppose my goals for this winter are to send my manuscript out to publishers. I should be getting it back from my beta readers at the end of next month. Feels like forever, but I know it's a good time for me to research agents and kind of plan my strategy. And I'm finding it a little difficult of a task to approach because my novel is sort of cross-genre. It's not just like fantasy or general literary fiction. It's sort of both, or maybe neither. I don't know. Or one or the other, I mean, not neither. So I need to sort of take a day or two and just sit down and really just go through all the possible agents I could send this book to and think of how I'm going to pitch it and what I'm going to describe it as. And even if I like the title, I know the title could change anyway, but you know, you want to put your best foot forward. And I might continue writing this short story that I've mentioned on Instagram if you follow me there. It's see, this is a little weird because it was a sci-fi short story. I never have written sci-fi before. I barely read it, to be honest, and I know that makes me sound like such a poser. When I say barely, I mean I have read it, but not as much as I read other sorts of genres. And it just came to me one day. It was part of, actually it started with, so Reader's Digest had a Twitter contest a few years ago where you had to submit your ultra short stories and they would publish them on their Twitter account and in the magazine. And I just came up with one, and I don't even know where I got the idea. It just came into my head and I sent it in, and it was one of the ones that was published in the magazine. And I figured because it came into my head like that, I should expand on it and make it into a thing. But then my novel part of it came out of a part of that, and I focused obviously on my novel, so the story kind of went away. But now that I don't have my novel to work on, I thought maybe I'll try this out and see if I can make it into a bigger thing. And like I have been working on it. It's been a little difficult just because like 5 years have passed, I think, since I came up with that one sentence that became the idea for the story. So I'm not clued into it. I'm not connected to it anymore. Yeah, so it's a little difficult to kind of plug back into whatever I was thinking at the time to make me think of that little idea. That plus the fact I'm not really in a sci-fi mindset these days, so I don't know, but we'll see. It might happen, it might not. Even if it doesn't, I'm getting practice. I'm writing, which is nice. Always the goal, right? So we'll see. But yeah, so those are basically my my reading and writing goals for at least the first couple of months of next year. Aside from that, we'll see. I have no idea what's going to happen next year or what it's going to look like. I can't predict it, so just roll with it. And on that note, thank you for your patience in my very sporadic posting. It's winter here, and if it's winter where you are, I hope you're keeping warm, and if it's not winter where you are, you're lucky. Normally I love the winter, but it's been a rocky start, this one, so anyway. Thanks for watching, and talk to you soon. Bye!